everybody.
Ron
IFBB
Partlow.
Pro. We're here with Freddie Antwi, who's off camera. New IFBB Pro.
Freddie
Antwi, publisher of Muscle Memory Magazine.
We are in the midst.
Can I start out with a story?
Yeah.
Can I start with a story?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm 23 years old. It's 1999. It's May 1st. And I crush the Alberta Provincials straight first.
Oh, yeah?
Crush. Devastating destruction.
The Alberta Provincials.
The Alberta Provincials.
Right.
So I walk out on stage, don't even have to pose, crush a show. So then everyone's telling me, do the Nationals, because they're here in Edmonton. And I'm a huge Dorian fan at the time. So I've got the Dorian philosophy. No, you pick your shows, like a strategy. You never go into anything unless you know what's going on.
Uh-huh.
So I buy a ticket, and in September, I go watch the Nationals.
Okay.
Smart move.
And, sorry, I have to rewind. Can I start this over? Are we recording?
We're recording.
Fuck.
Go again.
Okay. Sorry, I have to start this over. I got my years mixed up because the story's long. Okay, rewind. Okay, go all the way back. It's 1991.
Wow.
Now Freddie's smiling. And I'm 15 years old.
Yeah.
This is where the story gets going. And I've been training for a year.
Okay.
And I go to Edmonton to watch my first Nationals. And I actually see Joe Spinella win his class
Wow.
in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And so I, of course, didn't know Joe at the time. I'm just a kid, 15 years old, first Nationals. And I'm like, man, like Joe Spinella was one of the winners. Michel Payette won the heavyweights. He's got the long ponytail. Like, I remember all the guys that won, right? So I'm hooked on bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 99, I win the Albertas. And then I strategically go to watch the Nationals. And it's in the same venue
Wow.
as the 91 Canadas. And I'm like, wow, it's the same place I was when I was 15. Because when you're young, you don't really know where you are.
Yeah.
I get to the venue and I'm like, this is where I saw the Canadas.
Yeah. Brought you back.
The first show I ever saw was the Canadas.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there waiting to see what I'm going to be up against. And out come the men's heavyweights.
Yeah.
And there's Reza Antoine-Arby, who places fifth. And there's Tomasini, Mike Platts. And then out comes this fucking guy who doesn't even have to pose. He just walks out and just turns and just goes, boom. And it's Freaky Freddie Antwi. And he destroys the show.
What?
And destroyed the show just like I destroyed the Albertas. And I was like super motivated. I was like, that guy just did to that show what I just did to the way lower level show. And I was like, I don't want to be, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that comes out and just, does that. But so Freaky Freddie won the Canadas in 99, and I watched him just destroy it. And it was one of the most decisive, crushing victories I've ever seen in my life at any show ever. And here he is, hustle, muscle, and success.
In the flesh.
So yeah, those are the first two Nationals that I saw.
That brings me back.
Yeah, so it was a good time. So I'm glad to see you again, and I'm glad to be here.
That's very cool.
That's my starting story. Hope I didn't botch it.
That was fantastic.
Well, now you reached that point yourself. You went to the Canadas.
Yeah, I went the next year when I was 24 years old in Calgary. That was my first show.
Right on.
Reza Antoine-Arby won the overall there, and I got second in the first ever super heavyweight class.
Wow,
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it was Eric DeLaro, who, of course, everyone knows Eric, is now a successful trainer in LA, trained with Jay for years. I was second, and Scott Milne was third.
That's right.
So that was my first Canadas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, good times.
Nice.
That's great.
And now fast forward us to 2015.
Yeah, 13 Nationals and 16 years later.
13
Nationals, man.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I got a 6, a 5th, a 4th, a 3rd, and an 8 seconds. And then I have a class win in 07, but I never got the card. And then finally cleaned it up this year at the Masters win, and my 8th second to the overall winner. So it was nice to finally wrap it up. But yeah, that's the story.
That's great.
The rest I'm sick of talking about.
Tell us, Ron, how were you able to maintain that level of dedication for 13? And I'm assuming these were consecutive year after year.
Almost. There were 13 and 16 years. I skipped 05, 11, I skipped 11, and I skipped 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd you maintain that level of dedication each year to come back harder, train harder?
Oh man, I just always believed I could get a pro card. I so many people tell me I'm never going to turn pro. I'm never going to turn pro. That's all I ever heard. You're too tall. Your arms and legs are too long.
Right.
You're not big enough. You're getting second because you've got a nice look and a beautiful shape, but you'll never ever get a card. You won your class, but the middleweight beat you for the card, so it's never going to happen. Right. You're that guy. But I just kept thinking, fuck, all I need is a few more pounds of muscle and I can tilt the scale,
Absolutely.
Just a few more pounds or just a little bit of luck. And I love to train. That's the bottom line. And I think that's what, I see a lot of competitors that I think are rushing into competing too soon now.
Absolutely.
They don't have enough foundation. They don't have the muscle.
Right.
Those guys that maybe train for a year and then they're like competing, and they're never taking time to grow.
That's right.
I trained for 7 years before I competed.
Absolutely.
My first show I was 230 with ripped glutes.
Well, that's an interesting topic because that's something we've been discussing of late. Just how the sport's changed, where now it seems like a lot of the athletes are really they're not experiencing the full extent of the sport. I mean, it took me 10 years to turn pro.
Yeah,
that's a journey.
You were kind of like, you were the guy that wasn't quite nailing it.
That's
but everyone knew that if you nailed it, it would be lights out.
Right.
And I don't know that personally because I was just a kid, but I heard about you. I heard that there's Freaky Freddy. He's coming back one more time.
Right.
And you killed it that year.
Yeah. So it's a journey. And I think a lot of young people nowadays are just rushing into it. They're doing 1 or 2 shows, potentially getting a pro card, and not really putting that level of work and dedication that guys like ourselves did back in the day.
I just love to train.
That's
last year I wasn't sure if I'd ever compete again. Actually, I had a few injuries and. I was in my late 30s were creeping up, and I had a bad year in 13 where I got 6th, which sucked horribly. And then I had a bad North Americans where I didn't get called out until late, and it was just a bad year. And so I took all of 2014 to just try to decide if I was still relevant or if I still, when I went to watch the 2014 Nationals in Montreal, I was sitting there waiting for the supers thinking, okay, now what if this class walks out and I look at them and I realize that I can't be competitive anymore? Like, what if they're all a leap ahead of where they used to be?
Yeah.
The year that I sit out, everyone comes out and just looks like, Ronnie Coleman.
Like monsters.
And I'm like, geez, I don't know if I can even make top 5 or something like that. So I was a little nervous. And I was, really full of doubt and stuff. But through all that, I still loved to train. Like, I was still training all year, and I was still working out. It was still a highlight of my day. And I was still scheduling my meals and taking food to work. And I was still a bodybuilder. And I was starting to wonder if maybe I would do like what some guys are able to do now. Like a guy like Jason Ha, who hasn't been competing, but he's got a big following on social media, and he's with Animal, and he's doing his thing.
He's created a brand for himself aside from the stage.
So I was sort of starting to entertain, geez, maybe I can squeak something like that out a little bit in a Canadian way,
Right.
And then the supers came out, and who wins? Jerome Bravo, who, great bodybuilder, but I mean, just, fact is I placed ahead of Jerome 4 or 5 times.
Right.
So, and that's not a knock against him. I'm just saying that when he won the overall, I was like, shit, if Jerome can win this show, why the hell can't I? Like, Jerome's really good, and he's been right behind me several times. So all I got to do is just come back like he did.
That's it.
So then that was when the switch in my head flipped, and I was like, I'm going to get my card next year.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was it. But I guess through the whole thing, it's just been, you got to love to train first, because that's the root of it all. If you don't love working out,
absolutely.
If you don't love working out, then do something else. There's lots of other stuff to do, right?
What is there for you now? Obviously, you still love to train. So what's going to happen in the future now that you have your card? Are you going to compete as a pro?
Well, yeah, I am going to compete as a pro next year, probably. Basically, what's been happening with me the last few years is I had a couple of injuries that I didn't quite understand, so they kept coming back.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't having any off seasons.
Okay.
And 2014, I took this year off to grow, but I didn't really grow at all because I was working around a few things and I had some problems.
Right.
And you know, I was still like dedicated, but just nothing was happening. I wasn't able to push the workouts and do what I had to do to you know, I wasn't able to train legs the way I had to train. I was training real safe and trying to figure out why my knee was doing what it was doing. And then it wasn't until this year that I really sorted that stuff out. So when I actually got my card this year at Nationals, I actually wasn't as big as I think I've been in the past at a few shows. And I know I can be way better than that, because I know I can have a year of really good training now where there's no set date of the show I have to do. Because when you're fighting for a card, it's a year ahead. You know the date of the show. Your whole season is dictated to you by that schedule. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to do the show in July, so your off season starts here, ends here, your diet starts here. But now that I'm a pro, I can just train to get better, and when I'm ready, and I know there's been improvements, and I know I'm big and full and ready to start my prep, I can diet for a show, whether it be Phoenix in October or Vancouver in July or whatever show I want to do, because there's no pressure to get that card. And so that's you know, I'm really looking forward to that, because I've never ever had that. Well, my entire year has always been dictated by the date of Nationals, and if they move it up a month, you lose a month of off season.
That's it.
You know, I remember when Nationals used to be in October, and now it's in July.
Absolutely.
So I've slowly lost off season every year until it crept up to the midsummer. You know, so I just want to get better. Like this year when I started my prep, I always joke, I was the worst case scenario. I was small, I was flat, and I was kind of fat. And I had some things that had atrophied because I wasn't training them due to taking care of some tendonitis in my elbow and my knee and my shoulder, and my neck was bugging me. So, I mean, I was 300 pounds, and in a shirt, I carried it well because I've got a big frame. So everyone would see me in a shirt and go, fuck, you're big, man. When do you start your prep? And I'm thinking in my head, my biceps are tiny, my quads are flat, my back is shallow, my neck hurts, and I got a lot of work to do, but thanks.
Ever the self-critical bodybuilder.
The self-critical bodybuilder. So I started my prep. I did a blog called The Pro Card, and it's up on IamMutant.com.
Oh, cool.
And it's also on my Facebook page. But that blog, I actually released my before and after pictures, and they're easily the most insane before and afters I've ever had. I show people the 20-week out pictures, and they're really bad. They're really bad. Like, I do not look like I could be a pro bodybuilder. And then 20 weeks later, my hotel room pictures and my stage pictures are a completely different story. So this year I kind of did, I mean, Freddie will get this joke, I kind of did a Levrone. I kind of came from like...
Miracle Man Levrone.
Yeah, like I really did. And I actually watched Kevin Levrone videos because, you know, I like used him as a bit of extra motivation this year, because he used to start his preps like small and, you know,
flat.
Of course he'd start lean. It's the only difference. I was kind of fat.
There's a leg up.
So I really had like miles and miles and miles of work to do this year. So that won't happen again. The next time I start a show, I'll start hard, full, big, 300 plus, and I'll have way more to work with, and I'll come in a different looking guy.
Very cool.
So that's my plan.
Excellent.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing outside of bodybuilding right now.
Well, I mean, this year was big for me because I'm from Edmonton, right? I'm an Alberta guy, so I lived there my whole life, born in Grand Prairie, actually. But I just moved to Vancouver on January 1st. I moved to Vancouver, and I live in Coquitlam now, and I work for Mutant. I work for Fit Foods. So instead of being sponsored by Mutant like I have been for the last 3 years, I now work for Fit Foods in the marketing department.
Right on.
So I'm the athlete relations specialist. So I handle all the other guys on the team. So, you know, for example, Johnny Jackson just won the San Antonio today, about an hour ago.
Nice.
So, you know, when I go into work on Monday, I'll be doing up his bonus check, and I'll be sending that out to him, and I'll be figuring out his plans for the Olympia and making sure everything's booked, and, you know, like that sort of stuff. So I'm the athlete relations guy.
That's a cool job.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but I'm also involved in all the other marketing stuff too, so there's a lot more to it. You know, our YouTube presence is a huge deal, all the videos we do. We're traveling a lot for the expos, representing the brand. So I'm really busy with that, and I love living in Vancouver. It's beautiful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
A lot of scenery.
And also, you know, when you say what else do you do outside of bodybuilding, it's kind of a loaded question, because I don't really do anything outside of the industry. Like, everything is sort of tied to it. You know, my job. And I also love to work with really serious bodybuilders. So I have a short list of really loyal and dedicated clients that I routinely work with year after year, trying to help them avoid all the mistakes I made, because I made them all. You know, I made all the mistakes. You know, even when I was in really good shape, there'd been mistakes I made along the way. You know, so I try to help guys avoid mistakes and learn lessons and come in the best they can. So that's always a lot of fun for me too.
Okay, that's cool. Cool.
And I have a podcast of my own. Matt Meinrod has a website called projectbodybuilding.com.
Oh, cool.
And we do, he has a series of podcasts on there. It's have a podcast-based website, there's a forum and all that. But we have a show called All Bull.
All bull?
All Bull. And it's
there's no bull stuff.
Yeah,
all bull.
It's a play. It's a play on the old MD show No Bull, right? Which was our favorite show. But All Bull's an off-topic show. So we talk about bodybuilding a bit, but we also talk about all sorts of other stuff.
Just a bunch of bull, really.
Just a bunch of bull. Yeah, sorry, I've been watching my language on this. I don't know if this is like, you know, broadcast to kids or not, but
it's all good.
PG-14.
Yeah. Cool. So everything's related to bodybuilding in some way. Which, you know.
Yeah, and you can take a lot of the lessons you've learned in your life and apply it, or a lot of the lessons that you've learned in bodybuilding, and apply it in other areas of your life, right?
It's funny how often that comes up. When we're working at Fit Foods and doing marketing and stuff, you know, I often joke that Mutant's a very small Canadian company that creates a big illusion in its social media.
Definitely.
Which is like a metaphor for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
A lot of bodybuilders aren't big guys, but they create an illusion.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I have guys who talk to me and they think that we're like the size of BSN or something, some crazy huge company. And we're nowhere near that big, like a fraction of the size of them, but they just see our online presence and the quality of our YouTube videos.
For sure.
And they just assume that we're like that big. You know, where's your corporate headquarters? You know, how many, you know, you must have dozens of lawyers working. I'm like, no, we got one.
Where's your global operations center?
Yeah, you know, it's just, this headquarters is the headquarters. Like, you know, they think it's our Canadian headquarters, but it's the headquarters. So, but that's great if you can make people think you're bigger than you are.
For sure.
You know, it's bodybuilding.
Hey, sure. I was a master at that. I remember going up against Greg Kovacs one time.
How much did you weigh? How much did you weigh when you got your pro card? 235?
Yeah, you know what? Close to that. When I got my pro card, I was about 243.
Oh,
243.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Came down a little bit, so around that. I know I weighed in at 243.
Probably 240 the day of the show or something.
Exactly. So,
yeah. That's funny.
That was the biggest I've ever was for a show.
No, I still remember that. Your shoulder to waist was ridiculous, which is always something I